Hello, everybody, and welcome to Now What Next Steps podcast here at Malibu Pacific Church. Hey, if you haven't listened to this past Sunday service or the sermon yet, please press pause and go listen to it right now because this podcast will make a little more sense. But I'm not going to tell you how to live your life, so you're here and let's get on with it, all right? So, hey, everybody, we have a special guest today. We have Amy.
Hey.
Hey, Amy, how you doing today?
I'm doing excellent. How are you?
I'm doing really, really well. Hey, so this was session number 4 in vacation mode. It was the final week, and Andy listened to his own words and went on vacation, I guess.
Yeah,
and,
he did.
Ask him about it. He loved his vacation. Really restful from it, too. So it's a joke. Just talk to Andy about it. Anyways, but you were preaching, and you're preaching now like every other month, which is so awesome. You always bring the heat, and it's amazing.
Ooh,
Yeah.
man, pressure.
Yeah.
Oh, I do love God's word, though, so it's fun.
That's good. Okay, so session 4, you're going back and forth with the topic of this sermon, correct?
Yes. Yep.
All right, what was the original topic going to be?
Well, it was on, we were talking about love originally.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
we were talking about love, and then I was actually reading something that brought up this passage in John, and it kind of knocked me over, and I was like, wow, I need to wrestle with this idea of relaxing. So that this sermon topic ended up being relaxing in Jesus. And so I was reading something, was like, wow, is this really a call from God? And started digging into it. And then I was like, well, I guess relaxing probably should be in our vacation mode series. So we had a big pivot.
That's amazing. I just thought you maybe were watching like Zoolander, and it was like, relax, don't do, and you're like, let's do that. Just kidding.
Oh man, it's been too long since I've seen Zoolander. It's definitely time for a rewatch.
Yeah. Everybody out there should watch. I don't know. We're plugging really terrible movies. Anywho, okay, so you then were in Psalm 62.
Yes.
One of my favorite Psalms. When you were wrestling with that word, what was really coming to the forefront as you were going through that scripture, like just personally?
Yeah, I think the wrestle personally that I always have, and when you're looking at these passages where David calls God his rock and his refuge, his salvation, and kind of his provision is, I think we've all had times where we wanted God to provide in a certain way, and he didn't always provide in that way, but he provided. And so just kind of, I think that's always so that was my Psalm 62 kind of wrestle, is just this question of like, David calls on God's presence. He called on God's provision, like acknowledging that God was his protection, his refuge, a place he could hide. When David calls God his rock, it's like it protected him from weather, it protected him from the enemies that were coming after him. There's even a cool, like, I didn't get to say this in the sermon, but fun geeky facts is, like, even that word rock in the Old Testament would have been like a visual reminder to them of God providing water, living water for the Israelites in the desert, like when he provided that water through the rock. And so just this constant reminder of God's provision, his presence, and then of course his peace that he provides there. And so I just am always wrestling with that question of like, we know that God is a provider. He is our provider.
Yeah.
And yet he doesn't promise that things are gonna, that we're all gonna have a really big Malibu house with a 20-figure job or whatever.
Totally. Some of us do, but that's okay as well. It's,
Exactly. No,
I don't know if you noticed, but I work at a church in Malibu, so I'm basically there.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's pouring out.
Totally.
Yeah, but even back in the John passage, I was wrestling with this idea of relaxing and like, does God invite us to relax? And I was pretty blown away when I first studied. I mean, I knew he invited us to rest in him, but that word relax feels a little different. It really does feel like
it's almost like cheating or something like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I don't know why we as Christians maybe sabotage ourselves with that word relax.
Right.
Because it's like, wait, I can't relax. There's ministry to do, or there's,
Right.
I got to be doing something, right? When actually God does call us to relax.
Yeah, I think the best example of that is when oh goodness, I'm just forgetting, when Lazarus gets sick.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, and so Jesus like waited 2 days, and you're like,
Why?
what the heck
Yeah.
is happening? And
Yeah.
he was perfectly relaxed in the grand, plan that the
Yep.
Lord had to reveal so much more of himself. And but we can think that serving God is the opposite of relaxing, and that's just, clearly that can't be, because Jesus didn't live that way. So
Correct.
yeah.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. So then we also had the repelling pick.
Yeah.
That was really, really awesome.
Well, that was so fun, because the girl, I had picked out a couple pics from elementary camp that we had run before, and the girl who was in the pic, I didn't even know she was going to come, but their family came that Sunday too, so that was extra special.
That's awesome. What's the relationship you have with that family?
Well, so their daughter came to a camp that I had taken a couple, 50 kids each year to camp for the last 10 years. And she just happened to be one of the families that was part of that. And they had heard that I was preaching and wanted to come over and see what's happening at Malibu Pacific. And so it was such a sweet God moment, because neither of us knew that was going to happen, and just for her
awesome.
to get to be our example of repelling.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's so funny. You're like, oh, and you're here. Oh, that's so great.
I'm like, wait, Isabel, that's you, right?
That's so good. And you handed everybody a carabiner as they were walking in.
Yes.
Just as a reminder
Yeah.
to be clipped into the Lord.
Oh, I should have said that.
Yeah,
That would
it's
have been
all right.
better.
No,
Yeah.
no. So, but thoughts behind that one too, and what people can do with their carabiner if they were here, or if they want one, could they email you and get one in the mail?
Sure, I will send you a carabiner. Yeah. So the idea behind that is just that reminder of leaning back and resting in the love and care, that provision that of the Lord, knowing that He really is our provider. He is the one who's with us, and He is our peace. And so, I wasn't going to give everyone a harness. That would be awkward to walk around with. So I felt like a carabiner would be.
You don't have that kind of Malibu budget.
Also, the carabiners were cuter. They were bright colors.
They totally were. My girls took like 10 each. So sorry about that.
Clip them to your keychain, to your purse, to your bag, to your, gym bag, or work bag, or something that will, in those spaces when you tend to, have some anxiety or tend to wonder if you can trust God in those moments. That's the time to hold on to that carabiner and let it just serve as a reminder to you.
Absolutely. So as you were ending the sermon, you went through a breathing exercise.
I did.
Tell us a little bit more about that. Do you do breathing exercises?
It's funny that you asked that.
Yeah.
It's not my comfort zone. I would say that hasn't been it hasn't been something that I've done my whole life. But in the last, I would say in the last couple years, it's something that has really helped me to transport. God is always with us. We can pray continuously all the time, but to have a separation from kind of my everyday hustle and bustle, that has just given me a minute to stop and enter into the reality of God's presence in a different way than I tend to live all the time. And so I was just giving everyone a little bit of what I have, and there are people that are so excellent at breathing exercises, and that's not me, but I was like, hey, this is accessible to everyone. We can take a minute and just acknowledge that the presence of God is with us all the time. We can acknowledge that God is our provider, and we can acknowledge that God is our peace, and kind of breathe out any of those anxieties that come when we don't recognize those things. Like we can't trust God in the same way when we when we don't remember that he's there, right? And we can't trust him the same way when we don't realize that he's the one who really provides for us and gives us what we need. And so, yeah. So I was bringing to you something that I would say I've like, kind of awkwardly walked into in the last year and try to do it. And this week I've been trying to be really extra intentional about doing it a couple times a week, which is fun because we've had some just surprises around our house. And
I was going to ask about a little bit about that. And you've had a pretty relaxing week so far, right?
I feel like God is giving me a real opportunity to practice relaxing in him. I thought just sending my kids off to Kenya was going to be the one way to
but then what happened?
Relax in him. Well, we just decided that because there was water leaking through our house that we'd replace all of our pipes. So super fun.
So you're living there, right?
So, we're nomads at the moment, but that's okay. We live in a beautiful place to be nomads.
Absolutely. Wow. So you preach about relaxing. A beautiful moment, and Amy and I talked about this the other day. Just was really thankful that she showed her vulnerability of just sending off her kids to Kenya. That hit home for me because my kids are still young, but they're like getting to that age of those types of things where I'm like, all right, I gotta trust God. I gotta trust this, but it's so hard. And I was just like, oh, like the gut bomb happened. And then Amy comes in yesterday and hey, so water's leaking through our walls.
Water is leaking through our walls.
So we have to move and be gone while they do all these things. And so, God is just testing you. That's great. All right, we'll see you next week.
Next week, I'll have a much more, encouraging message from Andy.
Next time you preach, you should probably preach about money.
Yeah, there we go.
And then that week, you'll get a bunch of mutton.
Yes, that sounds great.
That's so good. Speaking of just like the relaxing theme, what's something that you would want to instill in all the people? Because you're the discipleship director, pastor, all those types of things. What would be something that you would want them to take away from this week specifically as they're leading or thinking about leading a small group, a rooted group, a starting point, or any of those types of things?
Sorry, excuse me. I think that heart posture of peace that for leaders, what I would say is it's never our job to, we're not responsible for other people's spiritual growth, but we can relax knowing that that's God's job.
Yeah.
And so we get the chance to come alongside, walk with people, remind them of what God's showing us, invite them into God's work, but we're not responsible. And so that's I think that causes a lot of anxiety in leaders when they feel like they're responsible for other people's spiritual growth.
Absolutely.
And then for all of us, I just to remember that even in moments of your pipes all needing to be redone, wandering around, not having a your normal place to lay your head, that God's peace is still available even then.
Yes.
And so I think that's what I want to live that out. I want people to look at me and think, that's weird. She's kind of weird. Why is she peaceful in the middle of that moment? And,
totally.
And that can be our moment to say, well, because our hope is secure. We've got a secure future. We've got an incredible God who's walking with us and giving us peace in the middle of it.
Absolutely. So that's the one takeaway you want them to have.
I think I just gave 5, but yes. Okay, I'm not great at 1. I'm better at 3.
That's see, you just got another 3-point sermon. Boom, there we go, right there. But it's all really good stuff. If you're thinking about becoming a small group leader or a rooted leader or something like that, please talk to Amy.
Yes,
she would love to connect with you and help you find your next steps as a small group leader here at Malibu Pacific Church. With that said, podcast comes out every single Tuesday or Wednesday of every week. And on top of that, we are going outside. We're doing Church on the Lawn starting this Sunday, the first week of July,
Woohoo!
all throughout July. So bring a chair. Don't worry, well, we have chairs for you. But if you want to bring your own chair, you can. If anybody brings a lazy boy, though, you automatically win, and I'll give you a Starbucks gift card. All right, just straight up. That would be super fun to watch, somebody hauling that up there. With that, Amy, thank you so much for an amazing sermon, and everybody for listening. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or hand gestures, please send them in to me, Joel, at MalibuPacific.church, and we'd love to answer any of those questions here on the podcast. With that said, we will see you this Sunday at 10 a.m. for Church on the Lawn. Everybody have a great week. Bye.
Bye.